So there's also a whole other side to why kind of switching over to the one hook in the front thing is a good idea. And that really has to do with increasing your catch rate overall. And it's something that a lot of people sort of forget to consider. And that is that on a plug that has two hooks on it like this, at least a percentage of the time, both hooks are going to find a spot in the fish. So what usually happens is you get your plug coming through the water, and we all know that stripers usually hit from the head. So most of the time they're going to take the plug and they're going to get that front hook. Now, sometime in those first few moments of the battle, this plug is going to be swinging around like this, and eventually this is going to find some place to stick, and it's usually on the outside of the head. Everybody's, got that one. You get those all the time, where the front hook is in the hinge and the other one's somewhere on the gill plate. And so what ends up happening there is, so now we're just going to imagine that this hook is stuck in the fish. This one has found purchase in the gill plate, and now this fish is swimming away from me like this, okay? Or maybe we'll do it this way. So it's swimming away from me like this, and Jerry's got it. Now he's pulling this way. And so what's happening is this hook is keeping this plug stationary. It cannot move at all. And so now this is pulling like this. And now the plug is becoming a crowbar, a lever. And that is how most of the times that people straighten out hooks happen. It's not because you've hooked a world record. It's because what Frank Daigneault coined the phrase, an incidental fulcrum. You're exerting so much extra force and then multiplying it using the body of the plug as a lever. And that's how something like this happens. This was probably the most saddening one that's happened to me. Really good fish on. The fish was, running hard. I could feel it banging its head against the bottom. Took another run. I felt the first hook come loose, which ended up being that the split ring just let go.
It's phenomenal.
And then I was just pinned to the fish with this, but that was, from the hook swinging around in the beginning of the battle. So that hook was not set. It was just there, and the fish ran a little bit more, and then the line just went limp, and the fish was gone. So when you have just a single hook, and this is one of my swimmers from last year, you can see I made this little modification here to take up some of the drag that was removed when I took off the rear hook.
This was prior to the weight idea, which we're talking about.
Right, yes, exactly. This was prior to that, and also prior to my redesign of this plug. But now what happens is, you've got this thing coming along, the fish takes it by the head, and you don't have a hook back here to find purchase anywhere else. You're not, any way the fish goes, this plug can just rotate around. And I honestly, once I made this change, I don't remember ever losing another fish. I probably did. I probably lost one or two just to a bad hook set or whatever. But anytime I was buttoned to a fish and I knew that I was on, regardless of size, I never dropped another fish that I can remember. And that really is due to the fact that I believe that this plug just can't function as a lever when it's able to move 360 degrees like that. So I am totally sold on the idea, and I mean, even think about in the canal, guys using stick shad, and these guys are, they're using this thing religiously, and you never hear anybody say, "Oh, I missed a fish because I didn't have a hook on my stick shad."
Right.
And magic swimmers too. A lot of guys are now just fishing a 5-0 on the front of the big magic swimmer, and nobody's missing any fish. That's because all these fish are hitting from the head, and they don't even realize that they're also taking a great conservation measure by doing that. They just know that it's a way that works and a way that conserves the life of the plug more than anything else.
That's right.
And they don't even know how many fish they'd be losing if they weren't doing it.
That's right. That's right. And so I hit on this in the first part of this video, this being the epilogue. But I love these pikeys that Mike Customs makes, and this is a great example of a plug, just like what Dave's showing of his, where a fish can get a lot of leverage on this plug. Oh, yeah. A fish, the size of this, the shape of it, the way it hooks, everything about it. This is one of those plugs where you lose a lot of fish, and And when it comes down to this whole fulcrum idea and this whole leverage idea, if you take the rear hook off, it's going to help you a lot. However, this is a classic plug that's been made forever, right? And it's sort of a scary proposition to say, I'm going to change this by taking the one hook off.
Right.
Now, again, maybe I'm just a dumb surfcaster and I'm just not refined enough, but I didn't really care. And I just started going with the one hook because I said, what difference does it make, really? Flop it in front of me in the water, drag it across, it flops along the surface of the water. I'm totally happy. It's got the white belly, it's just swinging along. You know, and this is one I've used a ton. You can see it's totally beat up, and I spray painted with a can multiple times. But you know, it can be a scary proposition to take a plug that's been around for so long.
And that you know works.
And that you know works, change it. However, I have seen no difference with this. And in fact, Mike, who I've talked to a fair bit about this, is now actually building his pikeys without a rear hook. And it makes no difference. And in fact, makes them cast better.
Yep.
And he's actually putting a little bit of a weight in the back now to help them cast even better. So now we have a plug, again, that is better than the original, and we're helping the fish at the same time.
Right.
Because, honestly, it doesn't matter how good your plug is if there's no fish to catch.
Right.
So we got to do what we got to do in this regard. But we understand that you also don't want to change your hookup rate, your landing rate, or your success rate.
Yep.
And so, you know, that's one of the things that we're trying to prove to you here through this.
All right, so if you can imagine for a minute, just imagine both of these hooks are buried in the fish. And so now it's becoming basically, it's hard to do, now it's basically becoming like a suitcase handle, okay? And if you can imagine like holding onto a suitcase handle and then just kind of stepping on it and twisting it, you can imagine you'd be able to break that handle off pretty easily. And it would be a lot harder if you had to pull up straight or if it was only attached on one side to try to break that. And that's kind of what happens. That's why when you have both hooks in the fish and it's kind of running away from you like this, then the hooks are working against each other, and that's when you feel that first hook let loose, and then you know that your chances of actually landing the fish are pretty low, and usually within, what, 10 to 30 seconds, you just, all of a sudden the fish isn't there anymore. So it's really just it's just a product of the hooks working against each other using the plug as a lever.